Scottie Pippen has never been shy about calling out today's NBA. Whether it's criticizing super teams or questioning players' work ethics, Pippen has positioned himself as an old-school purist who values discipline and hard work. But what if I told you that Pippen himself was part of a failed super team experiment? And what if I told you that some of the very issues he calls out today, lack of work ethic, chemistry problems, and locker room dysfunction, were the same reasons his Houston Rockets stint ended in disaster? Today, we're breaking down why the 1998-1999 Houston Rockets super team failed, the role Scottie Pippen played in its downfall, and the hypocrisy of his stance on modern super teams.
And for him to want to leave after 1 year just disappointed me greatly.
I wouldn't get Charles Barkley an apology at gunpoint, so he could never expect an apology from me. If anything, he owed me an apology for coming and play with his sorry fat butt.
To understand why this experiment was doomed from the start, let's go back to the mid-90s. The Houston Rockets were on top of the NBA world, winning back-to-back championships in 1994 and 1995 behind Hakeem Olajuwon's dominance. By 1996, the league was shifting. Michael Jordan and the Bulls had re-established their dominance, and teams were scrambling to keep up. The Rockets responded by bringing in Charles Barkley, a former MVP and one of the most dominant power forwards in history. The idea was simple: pair Barkley with Olajuwon and you have an unstoppable frontcourt. In their first season together, the Rockets made it to the Western Conference Finals, but were stopped by the Utah Jazz. It wasn't a failure, but it was clear that the time wasn't on their side. Olajuwon was aging and Barkley's athleticism was starting to decline. The front office believed they needed one more piece to get them over the hump. Enter Scottie Pippen. Pippen had just finished winning his 6th championship with the Bulls and was looking for a new challenge after the breakup of the Chicago Bulls dynasty. On paper, he seemed like the perfect addition, an elite defender, playmaker, and proven champion. But from the moment he arrived in Houston, things weren't as smooth as expected. Chemistry was an issue, and so was the team's work ethic, something Pippen made clear years later when he called out Charles Barkley for not putting in the necessary effort. Pippen recalled that when he first arrived, Barkley started training with him and legendary trainer Tim Grover. But it didn't last long. According to Pippen, Barkley couldn't keep up and preferred to enjoy his nightlife instead of putting in the extra work. This wasn't just a minor annoyance, it was a foundational problem. The success of super teams depends on stars being on the same page, and in this case, they really weren't. The 1998-1999 season was already a tough one due to the NBA lockout. With a shortened schedule, teams had less time to build chemistry. For a team like Houston, with 3 aging stars trying to adjust to each other, this was an absolute disaster. On the court, the team lacked true identity. Olajuwon, at 36, was no longer the dominant force he once was. Barkley's game had declined and his commitment to conditioning was questionable. Pippen, who had thrived under the triangle offense under Phil Jackson, struggled to fit into Houston's traditional system. The results, you might wonder? A solid but unimpressive 31-19 record and a first-round playoff exit to a young Lakers team led by Kobe Bryant and Shaquille O'Neal. Pippen, frustrated with how things played out, publicly criticized Barkley's work ethic and demanded a trade after just 1 season.
I wouldn't get Charles Barkley an apology at gunpoint, so he could never expect an apology from me. If anything, he owed me an apology for coming and play with his sorry fat butt.
He says, I probably should have listened to Michael a year ago when he said that Charles will never win a championship because he doesn't show any dedication. He's a very selfish guy.
In fact, Charles started out working out with me, and he was all dedicated and working out, me and him with Grover. I took Grover down there, and he lasted about a month.
Barkley, in response, called Pippen ungrateful, claiming he had taken a pay cut to help bring him in.
I gave up more than anybody to get Scottie. And for him to want to leave after 1 year just disappointed me greatly.
The fallout was ugly. The Rockets super team experiment was dismantled almost as quickly as it was assembled. Barkley retired a year later, and Olajuwon left for Toronto. Now, here's where things get really interesting. Scottie Pippen has been one of the loudest critics of the modern NBA super teams. He's taken shots at LeBron James for teaming up with stars in Miami.
You think the average owner is going to pick you or LeBron?
You want individual accolades or you want championships? Because I didn't chase mine.
Questioned Kevin Durant's moves and often downplayed the difficulty of winning championships in today's era. But let's take a step back. Pippen himself was a part of two super teams. The Chicago Bulls dynasty, yes, that was a super team. Yes, it was built through the draft, but adding Dennis Rodman in 1995 made it just as stacked as anything in today's NBA. The Houston Rockets, another super team attempt, but one that failed miserably in comparison. When Pippen criticizes today's players for teaming up, is he forgetting that he tried the same thing in Houston? Or that he benefited from playing alongside one of the greatest players of all time in Michael Jordan? It gets even worse when you consider his complaints about modern players not having work ethic or dedication. He walked away from Houston after just a season, citing chemistry issues and frustration with Barkley's lack of effort. But when he calls out today's NBA stars, he acts like his era was free of those same problems. This is something we see all the time. Old school players criticizing the modern game, forgetting that they dealt with the same issues back in their day. Pippen, Barkley, and even Jordan had their share of conflicts. Work ethic wasn't always elite across the board, and super teams weren't exclusive to today's game. If anything, the failure of the Rockets super team proves that talent alone isn't enough. Chemistry, sacrifice, and shared commitment are just as important. And when those things aren't there, even the most talented teams can collapse under their own weight. So, was Scottie Pippen right to criticize Barkley's work ethic? Probably. But does that mean he gets to act like these problems are unique to today's NBA? Absolutely not. The 1998-99 Rockets were a failed super team experiment, not because super teams don't work, but because their stars weren't aligned, literally and figuratively. Was Pippen right to call out Barkley, or is he being hypercritical in his criticism of today's NBA? Let me know what you guys think in the comments, and if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, share and subscribe for more upcoming videos and NBA content. My name is Damian Peters, this is Basketball Network. As always, thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you next time.